Hi, and welcome to Veterans Corner. I'm George Hinestrosa, an Air Force and Army retired veteran of 25 years and a business owner for 9 years. Here on the show, we explore how military experience transforms into business success. Each episode features veterans who've built thriving businesses, sharing strategies that turn military training into entrepreneurial advantage. The mission is to inspire and equip transitioning service members with practical knowledge and real-world insights from veterans who've built their businesses in many different industries. And today's guest is Kevin Ploth. Welcome to Veterans Corner, Kevin.
Hey, thank you, George, and so glad to be here with you and your listeners.
Thank you so much, Kevin. What happens when you train Army officers on missile defense systems at age 20? And then spend the next 3 decades directing plays in Manhattan, writing children's books about pancakes, and developing a gritty Western crime drama for television. You get today's guest. Kevin B. Ploth served as a squad leader in the U.S. Army, decorated for leadership while operating Stinger and Avenger missile systems at Fort Bliss, Fort Sill, and Fort Stewart. But here's the twist. He'd already been a SAG-AFTRA union actor for 5 years before enlisting. Most veterans transition from military to civilian careers. Kevin brought his creative soul into the Army, then weaponized it on the operational discipline on the way out. For over 3 decades, he's been building something remarkable, a 34-year acting veteran who owns Artemis Theatrical Productions, directs off-Broadway, and at Legendary Players Theater, he represents talent bicoastally through MJB Talent Agency in Los Angeles. He's authored 4 books, children's stories, irreverent poetry he illustrated himself, and a tell-all cookbook. He writes, directs, acts, photographs, and illustrates his own work. The man is a one-person creative battalion. He trains actors the way he once trained officers. He directs productions like military operations. He operates across multiple creative fronts simultaneously. New York, Los Angeles, Georgia. The same way he once adapted across 3 Army installations. And somehow, he's created a self-sustaining creative empire where every skill feeds the others. Again, Kevin, welcome. And I'm happy to have you. But before we get into some of your entrepreneurial experiences, why don't we just bring a little bit of, some of your history here. What happened to the young man before the military? Who were you, and what was it that compelled you to even think about the Army?
Well, it's in my DNA. I know a lot of people will say it's in the blood, but it really is in the DNA. My family is probably one of the 3rd or 4th oldest in the United States. Even on my dad's side, his family came here in 1815, and then at the turn of the century. But all together, said and done, we've been in service. Um, I am like the real Lieutenant Dan, but I was never a lieutenant. I was, you know, um, a PFC, an E3, then made it to E5, and
Right.
so my oldest son is also in the Marine Corps, and just in the immediate family alone, my father was a veteran. He was Coast Guard. His brother was U.S. Navy. Um, then my mom's 2 brothers were U.S. Army. Her father was a police officer, a motorcycle cop.
Wow.
And then on my dad's family, everybody was also firemen, cops, as well as military. My cousin did 30 years in the Army, and then he was also a battalion chief in the fire department in South Carolina. Um, and then just through the extended family, we have just in the 20th century, we have about a dozen family members that are buried overseas between the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Wow.
Um, I have 2 great uncles that are, or were now, 3 war veterans. And they uh, saw World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And you know, it's there. And then the rest of my family has either been teachers, nurses in the field of the cloth,
Mm.
in the field of helping inmates and people in prison, either in municipal and civil service. So it's there. It's
Right.
there. And it
You're not
goes
kidding when you
back.
say DNA. So what compelled Kevin though to go into the service? I want to know what you were thinking at the moment you say, okay, I'm going to go take the ASVAB or whatever they had back then. Um, and what was it that made you join?
So for me, it started at a very young age. Um, First thing I was always inspired by and drawn to anything and everything historical and military. My first experience was with learning and studying Egypt and Rome
Mm.
at about age 5. And then from there, we had a family friend, Dr. Enid Standering. She had 5 baccalaureates at that time, and she also was an operative during World War II.
Wow.
And she was a translator, translating French and German letters for the British. And she's from Scotland. And she was a very close family friend. So I would hear all these stories and all this. And then she would go and take trips to Machu Picchu and all these places. And I would keep grilling her with questions. She goes, I don't know everything about Machu Picchu. And she would give me these books then to answer all the questions that I had.
Yeah, because there was no
And
Google back then.
yeah, well, that really pushed it. And I think also one of the movies that really had a big impact on me when I was about 9 was Patton.
Mm. Right.
And from then on, I always wanted to either go to West Point, VMI, or Citadel, where my uncle, my dad's older brother, was a professor, adjunct professor at. Um, so by the time high school was rolling around and getting ready to graduate, I took several trips to VMI. We looked at West Point. I put my applications in, got in. Um, but for some reason, it just wasn't in the cards. And I ended up going to West Virginia Wesleyan as a theater major,
Hmm.
and then from there going to University of Arts in
Wow.
Philadelphia, which, by the way, that school does not even exist. It shuttered its doors last year. After 100-year plus history, the school does not exist.
Wow.
They couldn't even find 40 million to stay open, which is really bizarre.
Mm.
But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Because now all of us are wondering what happened to all the archives,
Right.
work, people's names, records, like what the hell is going on,
Yeah.
plus all the property that it had. Um, so that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, I still had the itch.
Right.
And while I was at University of Arts, this has been a little bit of the story. I got kicked out of school,
Hmm.
and I got kicked out because they didn't like the fact that I was a working professional.
Mm.
And I would just finished working on several shows with the Philadelphia Area Repertory Theater, doing stuff at the Annenberg and the Drama Guild. Um,
Elvis Presley.
Worked on the movie
Probably.
Philadelphia, and I was 18.
Yeah.
And they gave me an ultimatum: you either stop what you're doing and stay in school, or you could leave. And they kind of planned it where other people that were more supporters of what I was doing.
Hmm.
And my whole argument is, how do you expect me to be a actor or a talent if I'm not actually working in what you guys are preaching?
Hmm.
And that was that. I said, I'll take option B. And then by 96, I still had the itch. And at that time, too, I had my first child. And, you know, it kept bogging me and bugging me. And I walked into the recruiting station.
Hmm. Where did you do basic training? I mean, where?
I actually, and this is like during the middle of the Clinton
Mm.
administration and during the whole Don't Ask, Don't Tell,
Hmm.
during the whole what I call the BS and the legends of the stress cards, and then when they started instituting the workout outfits, which were horrible. Like I used to get my inner thighs like chafing with that gray.
Yeah.
Sorry for the graphic, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then they gave you sneakers, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. We're supposed to run with boots and like
Yeah.
whatever. So first I went to Fort Hamilton, here in
Right
New York.
there. Yeah.
That's where I did my MEPS.
Wow. Yeah.
That's where half of my family did their MEPS going way back. And then, so from Fort Hamilton, I took a Delta Eagle prop plane to Fort Worth, Texas. And then from Fort Worth, Texas, went to Fort Bliss
Wow.
to do my basic. And so when we got there, we had to stay in reception for an extended 2 weeks. Then we get to the main base, but we had the starships, and they looked like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So we were the Warriors' second platoon of the 156, and we still had to wait an extra 3 weeks because we weren't even at full capacity. And again, if people remember the mid 90s, it was a weird time to be in the military, and I was active duty.
Hmm.
And we were the first experimental unit to start incorporating National Guard.
Wow.
So we had people that were weekend warriors mixed in with active duty, and a lot of us had a hard time with that. I didn't really care.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I started to care because the one guy we had in our unit, um, he basically like slept through all of basic training. I don't know how he did it,
Wow.
but he did. Thank God he wasn't in my platoon. And I was made, again, like right off the bat, I was squad leader for the full 8, which is kind of funny. My older brother, when he was in the Army, he was also squad leader for the full 8.
Wow.
So it's like it follows us. And my ASVAB score was a 98.
Yeah.
My son was a 96. My older brother scored a 95.
Yeah.
So, like, one thing we learned from our family members and people that all served, the higher your score is, the better your MOS is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So that for anybody that's listening, looking to get in, remember that. And the fact that I already had college improved my.
right.
And then on top of it, mind you, I was 21.
Hmm.
I just turned 21 at that time.
Right.
So anytime officers or even other drill sergeants or sergeants would question me, first thing out of the mouth they ask how old you are, and then when I would tell them, they would just do an about face and leave me alone,
Right.
which was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because they kind of knew I was already squared away, and I have to thank my parents again, for
So.
instilling at a young age to make our beds, clean our rooms.
Right.
The Boy Scouts helped, um, and also knowing how to work with other people. And I think that was an asset of being and growing up in a metropolitan area. And then what was really my saving grace is I still had my ID from when I was living in Virginia.
Mm.
And one thing I learned from my family members is never tell them you're from New York.
Right.
And so I didn't. I always just said, oh, I'm from Virginia, whatever.
Yeah.
And until I got out of basic, then it was fine. And people knew I was from New York. But a lot of the New Yorkers were really hard New Yorkers, and boy, they got a beat downs
Yeah.
all the time. And
Yeah.
this was different. This was in the mid 90s.
Right.
And when we were just beginning to integrate women into the military, we were one of the last all male training facilities at Fort Bliss
Wow. Is that where you did
and
your
at Fort
MOS?
Sill.
Is that where you did your MOS as well?
No, I had to go from from Sill to Bliss to do my MOS.
Hmm.
And the funniest thing is, my cousin was there doing his ANOC at the time for his first sergeant.
Wow. Yeah.
And then Fort Stewart, though, I know you mentioned Fort Stewart. The funny thing is, I never made it there because I ended up getting injured, so I never
Oh.
finished my next tour of duty was Stewart, and then from there it was supposed to be Fort Washington, and then Korea, and then back.
Wow.
Because people forget that Stewart and Washington were the main hubs for ADA and the Stinger Missile Avenger programs.
Tell us a little bit about that, Kevin. So how when you were training, and I know you trained all kinds of people, officers and everything. Tell us a little about that experience. How did you feel being a young man put into that kind of a position?
Well, well, it was an option. I got because of my score on the ASVAB. I had that. I had an option to go to Monterey and be in the box and do deciphering and language, and I was like, it sounds pretty boring. The other one was going to Fort Lawson Woods, Lenawood, going to tank school, and I was like, eh. And then the other option was doing helo, And I was like, yeah. And the reason I'm making a face was because I was looking at what is the fastest way. And the reason I went in, my plan was to do 4 years as a non-com and then do another 4 as an officer and do the OCS that way. And the reason why is because I was inspired by several mentors that did exactly that.
Hmm.
And they were better leaders because of that.
Right.
And their men and women that followed them legitimately instead of, and nothing against people coming from the academies, but history has proven more times than not
Hmm.
academy training or the ROTC and then coming in trying to lead men and women that are enlisted. There's a
A little clash.
and it's the same thing with business. There is really a clash when you're part of the white collar to the blue collar.
Yeah.
You know, if you're management up here and then you're the ancillary and support staff here, there's no integration or true nice synapse
Mhm.
that happens.
Right.
There's this buffer that's between that, which I really chafe at, and that was my plan.
Hmm.
So
Well, we're
I picked the Avenger program, and
right.
the Avenger also had a really high end scrutiny because they actually had people come and check out my background, my parents before I could even start.
Hmm.
I had to have security clearance
Right.
because we were working, and even now to this day, you still do.
Right.
Um, and it's not just classified because the way the Stinger is built and designed,
Right.
you need that clearance.
Right.
And then even we got debriefed when I got ETS'd out.
Right.
Um,
Need to know.
and even I couldn't save anything. They had to take my books, my notes,
Right.
destroy those,
Right.
all that stuff. But you don't forget it because the training's amazing.
Right.
Um, I have to say, like one of the most interesting things about the training is knowing. And back then, for the mid '90s, I had to be able to identify over 150 different aircraft and helos,
Hmm.
not just visually, but
Sound.
by using the IFF unit, your flare, all this stuff. Like there's a lot more to it,
Right.
and this was antiquated compared to what we have today.
Right. Sure. Sure. So what were some? So tell us a little bit about then maybe some of the good leadership that you encountered as a young NCO, and maybe just when did you begin to think it's time for me to move on? When did that start to percolate?
I don't think that ever entered my mind to move on, but for me as a leader, and then training people, and then one of my first experiences on training, the trainers that basically said, "Hey, Ploth, you're older than everybody else. We want you to train people on the." My job was specifically to train people on the Claymore and also on the AT4 anti-tank because I already scored, rocked it in the BRM, rocked it and all the other stuff, and they were just like, and the fact that I like they called me Destructicon. I had all this crap on my,
Yeah.
and I hated it
Yeah.
because it made you a target,
Yeah.
and especially at 6'6", I'm even a bigger target. But they had me help teach the guys how to set up the Claymore, how to disable it, the how to use like, and it's funny too. One of these,
Oh,
remember this?
clicker. Yeah.
But how to run the wires. Um, and as a squad leader too, I had to learn how to communicate effectively.
Hmm.
I had probably they gave me the worst squad. I'm not kidding you. I had a son of a Supreme Court judge.
Wow.
I had the other guy that was our APG. He thought he was the prima donna of prima donnas. Then we had this other kid, Private Green. His motivation level was that of zero point 0.1. He would actually sit in front of his bunk with just his whole little area a mess, sitting there picking the lint between his toes and his toenails.
Yeah.
And I had to effectively motivate him and get him in line with the rest of the squad, or we were going to get smoked.
Yeah.
And
Private.
fast forward when we're on base at Fort Bliss and we're already done with our AIT, which was really long.
Hmm.
I've between basic and that, I think I did almost like 30 weeks of
Wow.
training.
Wow.
But I ran into him, and he actually thanked me
Mm.
for being patient and understanding. And I was like, I really didn't do anything. The rest of it was you. And I said, I just told you what the outcome was going to be
Mm-hmm.
and what the results are if you continued on that path, how it was not only going to be a shit show on you, sorry to curse,
Oh yeah.
but for the rest of the squad.
Right. And God,
And then I said, the rest of the squad is going to
that happens in the
come
military.
down on top of you as well. And I said, you're going to have it double.
Right.
And I said, what is the option that I'm going to have? I'm going to have some guy that's going to lose it. And we did have guys on day one. I had to pull fire guard and watch a guy in his underwear. Like I had to help them strip him, take everything off of him because he lost his proverbial, and he thought he was a badass from Bronx.
Right. Yeah.
35 years old, thought he was a and lost day one
Wow.
after they crammed us in these cattle cars and did this drive to nowhere for about 8 hours and then had us all pile out of these cattle cars on top of screaming and yelling and
Yeah.
punching and kicking. The guy lost it. He went from being a scary badass to a,
Yeah.
and
Unfortunately.
I'm watching him on fire guard for the MPs to come in the morning to take him away. And I'm like, nope.
Wow. So tell us a little bit then about your how did you decide then? How was your exit then from the military? How did you start planning your exit?
Well, I didn't plan it. It was actually forced upon me. I got injured,
Mm.
severely injured.
Oh, okay.
Um, I subtailored my ankle, blew my knee out, and then they were trying to push me out of my MOS.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I was already at the top of my class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was only one guy. I think we were tied for our grades and PT. I think he was able to do more pull-ups than I because tall guys have a hard time with
Right.
pull-ups.
Right. Right.
Um, and this is where then, and I have to say that men and women of the military today have more than what I had in the mid 90s, more than what you had,
Mm-hmm.
more than what my father had and everybody else had. You have so much outreach out there, but yet the saddest thing is there's only one call center for the whole military when it comes to mental health issues.
Right.
Um, there's only one specific person for specific things for veterans still.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's a lot,
Right.
there isn't.
Right.
You do have your the old school VFW, the American Legion. You now have AMVETS, but you have other things too that are stuff I wish I knew that was available then or was there because it would have helped that transition. But basically, it was during my ETS. Here's your stuff. DX this. Get rid of your stuff. You're going to be debriefed on your training. Give us some of your books and literature back. For the Stinger and Avenger. And then that was it. And then they gave me a bus ticket ride from hell. Not a plane,
But
a bus ticket from hell. I toured Texas basically. I went from Fort Bliss all the way up to Roswell, Wichita, like this. Then we went up through Ohio, West Virginia, down, up, and then ended in Newark, New Jersey.
wow.
It was like a week. And literally we were in the back of the bus. And all I had was my uniform. I didn't really have any civilian clothes. And again, with the mid 90s, wasn't really welcome with a military uniform, believe it or not.
Right. Yeah.
And you would have thought, but
Yeah. Yeah, the perceptions have changed so much over the decades, right? We got into Vietnam, then we got out of Vietnam, and then we got, then it kind of fixed itself. And then again in the 90s,
be all you can be.
be
And
all
then
you
the
can
90s, it
be.
was down again.
Right.
And then now it's still kind of up. But I have to say that the transition, I just was very fortunate. I had good parents and good fallback. And the fact that I had two careers before the military,
Mm-hmm.
the food and the entertainment business.
Right.
Because when I was even in basic, they somehow found out that I did acting and they were teasing me. My nickname ended up being in Hollywood, which lasted all the way through.
Yeah.
And it was funny, my cousin's husband at that time used to call me Hollywood as well.
Yeah.
So they drew it on my hat during basic. I'm like, oh. And then they would question me like, oh, so you did this and you were in this. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So that was
So tell me, so after the military, then how did you integrate back into? Did you jump right back into your acting and into your how did that transition happen? What was your mindset getting out? Plus, you were injured, right? So, what how does one deal with being first of all getting out because you're injured, which is not the normal way to get out, but you had to do it. So how did that in your mind play with maybe you wanted to stay in longer? Now you're out. Now what am I going to do? Right. So a lot of us have that kind of what now, right?
It. I think for the first several months it was hard because I was consistently waking up early every morning, like at 4:30, and I think that's because again the training and just the way the adjustment that was kind of hard for a while. I think that was harder on the people I was
How
living
long did
with
it
too.
take for your knee to like to get back to normal? I mean, because you all this time now you're with an injured knee.
Oh, I had to do physical training at William Beaumont while I was there.
Hmm.
And then when I got back, I mean, I still did a lot of physical therapy, but I was lucky that, I was smart enough to catch it because originally they put me in a compression cast.
Hmm.
And the problem with that is it started causing edema.
Oh my goodness.
And then I go to the one guy goes, "Oh, don't bother me. You don't know what you're talking about." I'm like, so if they amputate my leg and I have to beat you with that leg, and this was a person that he and I had issues with each other because he was a higher rank. And we'll get into that later about the types of people that should be in and shouldn't be in. So the other guy looked at it and he goes, he's right. And you could tell I was starting to get gangrene. So they rushed me back down. They had to cut the cast off and then redo everything. And what they technically should have done
Hmm.
then is actually break it and then reset it. So that way it would have been better.
Right.
Because all that time and fast forward to now, because of that compensation, I had issues with my left leg and my knee, and then this knee went again. So it's whatever. And then plus, don't forget, I did play sports in college.
Right.
I played sports in high school. So all that wear and tear, it adds up over the
Yeah.
years.
Hmm.
And being a tall guy doesn't help
All right.
at 6'6".
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So that's got to take its toll.
but it was tough. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a little gun shy for a while. I didn't start jumping back in. I was helping my dad with his company for about a few months, and then I started doing auditions again. Then I was not even 4 months out, and this is in '98. Um, I ended up getting cast as Don Quixote
Oh, de la Mancha.
in La Mancha, and then also being the road manager for this tour. And it was funny. We went on the road from '98 all the way through up till 2000 because they asked us to come back,
Wow.
but only me and the guy that played Sancho.
Sancho Panza.
And it's funny that the actor Rodriguez, um, he said the same thing I said to them because they had us in different meeting rooms. He said, "I only do it if Kevin does it," and I'll say, "I only do it if Ray does it," and that was it. And we had fun, so we were back on the road again for another 6 months, touring the whole country.
Nice.
But on the second tour, I was in with a guy that was an Army veteran who did 4 years. And his job, he was an engineer, so he did most of his time in Lennowood, where my cousin was stationed.
Hmm.
Um, and at that time, when I was in, both my cousins were in the Army. So one was out in the Carolinas, while the other one was an NCO
Hmm.
and trainer, drill sergeant at Lennowood for the engineers. And then I think he ended up going to Fort Stewart.
Interesting. Interesting.
So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. So
It
that's
was kind of nice having family in there. And then we had another family member that was a
Mhm.
colonel. He would check up on me.
Right.
So it was kind of nice.
So that kind of reignited your artistic and your actor career again. So after what
Well,
happens after that?
no, actually, it's always been there. Like, it's funny, when I got injured, so since I couldn't do everything while I was at Fort Bliss, I ended up getting asked to go audition
Hmm.
for the Lion in Winter in El Paso
Wow.
Playhouse, and I ended up getting cast as the role as Richard. They said, "Oh, we love it because you have this limp, and when we come time a show, you won't have to,
Yeah.
wear that. You'll be fine." And then fast forward, I ended up getting ETS'd out, so I felt bad. I'm saying, listen, I got to leave. I can't do the show.
Right.
Unless you guys want to put me up and pay for me here. And they're like, oh, we don't have that in the budget. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I gotta go.
But the fact that I got cast as Richard Lion, the winner in El Paso, that was like, my family was like, oh my God, only you. And the fact that the other guys on the base were all cracking up and laughing, they were like, what?
So how much did you rely on your army experience when you're going through all this? So that now you've got all this, you became a trainer of officers and enlisted. You went through you had all these clearances, and now you're out back in the world. And how is any of this identity from the military, this veteran identity, this soldier identity, are you carrying that with you? Is that something that is helping you push through some of the setbacks that you felt physically, maybe, or just getting back integrated into society? How did you carry your experience in?
I think in the beginning, I didn't really say too much about it.
Hmm.
I only think I became more active about saying, hey, I am a veteran. I got honorable discharge under general conditions. I'm like
Right,
as real as you can get.
right,
I get some pushback from, oh, well, you weren't in combat. Why do you make a big deal? And I said, I'm speaking for everybody.
mhm,
It's not a big deal.
right,
But the fact that I was serving and still doing my job as an active duty person, and I did it well,
mhm,
and I didn't half ass it like a lot of people do.
right,
Um, and the fact that when you make it through basic and AIT, that's when you're in it.
mhm,
And the fact, while during that too, we were doing other stuff. I was doing work on the border because I spoke Spanish,
mhm,
and a lot of times we would get pulled to go help border patrol, and especially where Fort Bliss is,
mhm.
people don't understand that
Right,
where
right there.
it's laid out.
Yeah,
You're right there,
right.
and to this day, I talk about Clinton's follies. So one of their genius things was, all along the Texas border and going all the way to California, they set up these observation balloons that looked like they were from World War One.
Hmm.
So we would have to go help them set them up. And then I said to somebody, and they got really pissed. And one of the officers, I said, didn't anyone bother to think that we're going to have to put these back up? Oh, what do you mean? And I said, well, you see those two idiots on the other side
Right.
of the Rio? And they go, oh, no, it's nothing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, watch what they're going to do. And as soon as we left, you hear, pew, pew.
Wow.
Balloon goes down, you got to go back. And then for at least 5, 6 weeks, we would go down there and have to help them set them up, put them up. Um, and then there was a couple times we exchanged fire
Hmm.
when we weren't supposed to. Um, and I'm sorry, someone's going to take a shot at me. I'm gonna fire right back.
Right.
And I argued that fact that they even wrote me up and everything, and I was like,
Yeah.
why? And this comes back to what I was going to say about this individual and I. Um, I think training and leadership, you really have to put your emotions and ego aside
Right.
and really listen. And I try to do my best to do that. I could always be better at listening.
Hmm.
I could always try. And as I've gotten older, yes, there's more anger,
Hmm.
quicker to
Right.
throat punch somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I do restrain myself a lot of times. And again, that's the training,
Yeah.
because I know what I can and can't do, and I know what I will do
Right.
if you keep pushing. But again, that's the training, and I really I'm thankful for that, and I really believe, and I'm very adamant to this day, to the day I die, and hope my children pass this on, is everybody needs to serve.
Hmm.
Oh, well, we're not Israel and stuff. I don't give a crap what we are. Every adult between the ages of 15 and 18 need to do 2 years.
Minimum.
I don't care if they're rich, poor, crippled, in a wheelchair. You all do it and go through it. Figure it out.
Right.
And you mix it up like the way it is in basic training, because the guy to your right and the guy to your left come from different places.
Right.
And the only thing you have in common is you got to depend on them to stay alive.
Right. Exactly.
And I think people's perceptions would change. I think people's understandings of of guns would change and weapons, and a lot of things would change. And I think we would have a better effective society
Mm-hmm.
and a better trained society instead of people picking up their phones, being able to react and respond.
Right. Yep. Yep.
You know,
I think we're getting back to that, Kevin. That you now that you brought that up, I think that the current administration, and without getting into any politics or anything, but like it or not, I think we're getting back to that. I think there's a lot of cleaning up that is going on. I think the last few decades had their ups and downs, like we discussed in the military. A lot of maybe programs that shouldn't have been introduced into the military to begin with. But I agree with you. I think that a young man or young woman would be well served to serve, at least coming out of high school. Maybe it should be like a prerequisite to go into society, right? Give your country a couple of years, 2 years minimum, right? Go through basic, learn something, um, you know, get some knowledge about what reality is all about, and then when you come out, I want to say self-sufficient, right? You're almost self-sufficient because now you
but it's not even that. But you know how to deal and work with other people other than your kind.
then exactly.
And I used to fight against stuff. I used to watch it even in the army, and I hated it. This polarization. The blacks would sit with the blacks, Asian, Latin, and I would say, "You guys have 5 seconds to change this table setting right now." They go, "Oh, what do you mean, Ploth?" And I said, "Either I move you,
Right,
or you move you, and you sit white, black, Spanish, Asian, and mix it up now."
right.
And I've never seen people move that fast. And my guys were all like that, and my squad was like that too. And and I was a firm believer when you start doing this stuff and separating, that's when you have problems
Hmm.
and all that. No,
Right.
I'm ardent on that, and it goes back to even this book that I believe every leader should read, every soldier should read, and there are two brilliant books by John Keegan: The Face of Battle
Okay.
and The Mask of Command.
Hmm.
And the reason I say Mask of Command, it talks about several types of leadership. It talks about the heroic,
Hmm.
the unheroic, and the false heroic.
Hmm.
And good examples of the heroic would be someone like Alexander the Great,
Right,
lead from the front, not from the rear.
right,
The unheroic would be someone like Ulysses S. Grant, wore a basic uniform, didn't really serve on pomp and circumstance, and was an everyman.
right.
But he was an effective leader and believed in hitting to the flank, hit to the flank, hit to the like, keep hitting it and wearing them down.
Hmm.
Then you have the false heroic, and I bring up Adolf Hitler,
Hmm.
or what I call a bunker general.
Right, right. Leading from
And I
leading
leave
from the
that for the
back.
rest of the people to read it and delve into it, and then we can maybe do another podcast
Yeah,
again of just about that.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Take some
that's
Q&A.
it's
But
interesting. Yeah, definitely. The psychology of leadership is definitely, and it's not for everyone, right? I think we all, like myself, right? I'm kind of like, I like to be a team player. I'm more the team player, but within the team, I can have a leadership role, right? I know what my strengths are and I pull to those strengths, but I don't want to lead everyone, right? Like, I don't want to be the president of the United States, but put me in charge of something that I like, and I'll lead those people. You know what I mean? But it's not for everyone, right? Every position is not for everyone, and I don't think that everyone that has those positions, like you said, should be. Some of them shouldn't be in those positions
no, 100%.
just because they went to school for it, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, what I call, and some of my friends hate this that are from the academies, I call them ring knockers
Yeah.
or our Mustangs.
Hmm.
And that's why I always cite George Washington. And people can say whatever they want. You know what? They don't know what they're talking about. One thing he did very well
Hmm.
as a leader, he knew how to delegate,
Right.
he knew how to listen,
Hmm.
and he knew how to discipline. And he also knew how to be a human being, and he also knew that he made mistakes. He knew he was human and flawed
Yeah. And,
to the day he died.
and all qualities, and these are all qualities you need as a parent.
Yeah, well, that too. And me as a parent, I am far from perfect, and there are things that I regret as a parent.
Hmm.
And one thing I will say of Washington over all the other leaders and all the guys that made the great speeches, like McCarthy with the Thayer speech, or we mentioned Patton before, and all these other people, or Bradley. One thing Washington did that a lot of others didn't, and a lot of leaders don't, he knew when to turn at his sword.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
And it's one of the hardest things, even in the entertainment business. I've watched literally, like just recently in the past several years, I watched a director scream and yell, "I'm the director," and having this man tantrum.
Right. Right.
Um, to directors not even being specific, where they would have an egg on set and wouldn't know what to do,
Right.
or everybody seems to know better than everybody else instead of actually saying, you know what, maybe I'm not right for this, and knowing when to throw in the towel.
Right.
And that's one thing I give Washington. He knew when was the time to hand it over
Right.
and say, I'm done with
Absolutely.
all of it. I'm done.
Absolutely. Yep. And it,
And that's commendable, and that's probably the hardest thing for any human to do, is relinquish control or know when it's time.
right.
Um, and it goes back to that phrase too, like they said in Gladiator, when the man turned to the general, he says, when will these conquered people know they're defeated?
Right. Yeah.
And then the other question is why?
Why?
Always why?
Why? Right. Why? Yeah. So Kevin, so tell us a little bit about your current experience. What in hindsight now, where you're at now in life, with all this 2020 behind you, um, what lessons learned can you share with transitioning service members, or even retiring service members, as to what things maybe you might do as as a transitioning person, now that you know what you know about life, and what and the things you've experienced about people, not just life, but how people are and how the world is.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first, let's go with the retiring. You never retire.
Mhm.
It never leaves you.
Right.
And if you have that mindset of retiring or ending, you're going to end.
Hmm.
That's a sure way of getting that foot in the grave faster than you can bat an eyelash.
Agreed.
Um, there is so much out there to do and still do.
Hmm.
You could be everything from a technical advisor on a TV show to a movie to a theatrical play. You could be an advisor to a restaurant. You can work with the Boy Scouts, like all these. There's so much there for leadership and training. It's how you're going to craft and mold your next stage.
Hmm.
You're it's like a butterfly being a butterfly again.
Hmm.
You've gone through these stages from the pupa of the chrysalis to the butterfly in the army or the
Right.
Marines and
Right.
Air Force. Then you're out, now you're back to the pupa stage again, relearning, getting your legs in.
Right.
But there's so much out there now, information and resources.
Hmm.
Good example, we got the VME, Veterans for Media and Entertainment, which I'll send you those links
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Like O'Halloran, and you got the LA office. Michael runs the one here in New York. There's so much in there for a veteran to do. You have a lot of veteran groups and organizations. There are veteran vetted business organization in every state, veteran vetted business owners in every state.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of veteran magazines that are out there. There's some that want to charge you more than others, but there's a lot of websites where you can source and get that information. The Department of Veteran Affairs still has a long way to go. They don't have a lot of that source material and resources that you really need to sink your teeth into, but it's out there.
Right.
And I think the greatest thing about ChatGPT and Perplexity and all these other things will really help you redesign stuff,
Right.
get you up to speed, but don't allow that part of you to die or let people take that away because you served.
Right.
You did something that we are the real 1%.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And never let people take that away from you. It's the same thing I say about restaurant workers. I say there's two things people need to do in life. They need to be in the military
Mm-hmm.
and they need to work in a restaurant for 2 years. And Anthony Bourdain said it great. No greater college or education is that of working in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamics of people, it's almost the same as the military.
Right.
And you have your hierarchy,
Yeah.
your leadership, your roles, your tasks,
Right.
your jobs,
Right.
your time in, time out, like all these
And
things.
you're
And
serving.
it's kind of and it's they're kind of similar. There's a lot of same thing with the entertainment.
Yeah.
And there's so much that you can do and offer, not just because you served, but also help other people and inspire other people to go back and serve and take your slot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's always a slot that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
You just have to be able to get out of your head and get out of that and talk. And don't be afraid to show weakness. And don't be afraid to show it. Doesn't mean you're a failure or you're emotional. And that's one thing I've dissuaded a lot of people about how they think of the military and people coming out like we're damaged goods.
Right.
If anything, we're better than most.
Right.
It's the civilian world that's actually more damaged because they seem to think that they talk about emotions and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They think they have emotions or problems they don't. And you know, I have to commend our men and women and all our wonderful branches, even the Merchant Marines. I know some of our other branches would poo-poo on it,
Right.
but that's service.
Right.
That's a hard job, man, running those
Yeah.
tankers. That's a risk.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sorry, even the people that are in the rear with the gear, that's a risk. Because you know what? Not everybody can do that. But then you can take that skill set and say, you know what? I show up on time. I'm ready to go. I can meet the task, and I'm time on target.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know those are all sound bites, but they're true.
Right. They're true.
They're true. It's something that I live by every day. I have a routine at night before I go to bed. I have the coffee ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
I get up, boom, boom, boom. Either I or my spouse make the bed. I make sure my son makes his bed. Like it's a routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to keep those routines. And I still get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for a minute, Kevin. Routine. That was a kind of and a great segue because, and I know we probably haven't answered the second part of the question, but
No, we didn't get like I was going to say about retirees and other
yeah,
veterans in a minute. We can get back to that.
yeah. So routine, right? Routine, or not only routine, but
Regimen.
regimen. Also time for yourself, like how important is it a meditation, how important is it for Kevin to take some time to center himself, what works for you?
One thing I will say to everybody: be selfish. Be selfish with your time. And I know some people can get upset with it. Listen, I don't care if it's playing video games. I don't care if it's reading a book. Get yourself an activity and do it, but don't let it consume you. Also, when I'm driving or having dashboard time for my jobs, um, I'm always listening to a audio book
Right.
or a new language. I listen to all kinds of podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
good, bad, and different in between. Um, I also listen to music constantly,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of music. And then I also have hobbies. I build models. I'm also part of the Long Island Historical Military Society for a long time, and there's veterans in there. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the first time ever that I was able to compete in 2 years in a row, and I won bronze. Oh, someone goes, oh, well, that's just third place. And I said, I don't give a fuck. I never thought I was going to get that far.
Right.
But the fact that they acknowledged it, and I did a good job. I was proud of my tank and proud of my figure. And, who knows what's next,
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I got to meet some great people, some famous people, too, that are in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Get yourself a hobby. I don't care if it's fishing, making, like I've gotten into fly fishing. I have my own little fly fishing
Right.
thing. I do the lures. I don't always have time to do it. I love collecting. Like, as you can see, I have my baseball stuff, my
Mm-hmm.
Yankees. It's something I get to do with my son.
Mm-hmm.
Play a board game, play chess. That's a hallmark of leadership as well. You learn and master chess, and then the other game is Pente.
Pente.
And, share that with people. Someone goes, board games, is that for kids? I'm like, dude, like we do Risk, we do Easy Money,
Right.
the Game of Life,
Right.
all this stuff, and it's fun. Yahtzee, card game, like get involved. And then on top of it, like even with my actors, I had one person say, "Oh, I don't work for free," and I said, "You know what? My son is right now working for free in the Marines because of the government shutdown.
Right.
So I think you should shut your pie hole and maybe let's see what service you do." Well, I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Right. Right. Right.
And or people get upset when they hear the word sweat equity. I don't care. Yeah, that's great. You get a day rate every day, but maybe you should start to giving more.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised because the stuff that I do wins. The other stuff that you play with other people doesn't win, and nobody knows about it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's great for them. I'm not going to take shade away, but you know what? Great, go do it.
Sure.
I'll find somebody else that wants to play.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get stuck in your head. Don't you know worry and give yourself time to breathe. Enjoy being in the kitchen. Enjoy the quiet sometimes
Cooking.
and being still. That's one thing I teach my actors. One thing I love, I call it doing the Sophie, and they're like, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, Sophie's a cat,
Mm-hmm.
and Sophie does still.
Right.
And the more still you are, the more power you have.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if it's the military, the restaurant, entertainment, politics, teaching.
Yeah.
The moments of silence that you command get more attention than just the noise coming out of
Yeah. Over your pie.
what we call your cake hole."
Yeah. It's amazing. Even within even biblically speaking, they say that the silence is when God speaks to people, right? We have sometimes is when we've got our minds so convoluted and we've got all of this now, even nowadays with all the media and the music and just everything just coming at you. Um, they say that we have more information flowing into our brains in one day now than our great grandparents had in their whole lifetime. That we have seen in one day, we have more information flowing in than our great grandparents had in a whole life.
Yeah.
So,
No, the distractions are.
mhm,
Ooh, I mean, I would even say, like, even with streaming services, like the commercials are much more faster than regular TV, much more intense.
right.
Even the video games, even the way everything's done now, it's at much more lightning speed than it was 40 years ago.
How important how important is networking to Kevin? Is networking still important? What is how does networking fall into your lifestyle?
Into my wheelhouse, very important, and I think helping other people is one of the key things. That's how I network.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at what they can do for me. I look at what I can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of our mottos with Artemis, and why I built Artemis is help those that have helped serve you.
All right.
And people have actually seen me put the proof in the pudding. Like with our
Mm-hmm.
TV show, like one of the things I had to wait because we've had people, with injuries and needing surgery. That's important. I think your health is important.
Right.
And at the same token, I've even shaved my pay rate and my take as a director, actor, and the writer because I want other people to be taken care of
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about me.
Right.
There's no me without the we. I cannot exist without you. And a lot of people say that's a very Buddhist way of thinking, and I said, yeah, okay,
Right.
whatever. Um, it's like one of the lines in the beginning of the TV show that we're working on. The one of the lead characters, the villain, says, "We begin where we end and end where we begin,"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's, I think, a through line for me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's almost a through line for everybody that's been in the service of the United States or any military.
Mm-hmm.
And not just saying about us, but I think anyone that's ever served any of their countries, whether they were on opposing sides of us or not,
Mm-hmm.
you still served. You still did something that someone else did not.
Right. Right.
And you should take pride in that, whether you were doing bad and who it is, who it's not up to us to decide who is bad and good.
Right.
Because I will say this, we're all dirty.
Right.
We all have dirty faces.
Right.
We were created in that way, and we will go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because we cannot be that because we are this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I bring back up the book by John Keegan, The Face of Battle.
Mm-hmm.
People forget that. And funny things happen in fights and in combat and in all kinds of situations. Um, it's not funny, but I find humor in everything, and I think that's what drove people crazy in the military, drove people crazy when I was in college and in art school, and even now, because I think it's all a farce.
Right.
And you know what? We're part of that joke.
Yeah. Well, what do they say, right? What's the saying? You should know this better than anyone, right? All the world's a stage. We're all
Yeah.
salesmen. We're all salesmen, right? Whether we like it or
Well,
whether,
the actors would argue that because I keep telling them that like you really are a salesman.
yeah.
You're given material, you've got to learn it, you have to regurgitate it,
Right.
and make the people on the other end believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else sales is but that.
Right.
And I really, it's like you have all these methods of sales. It's like the same thing with the acting, and I'm like, at the end of the day, you know what it's all about,
Yeah. Listening. Yeah.
and this connecting.
Right.
And I think that's one of the hardest things that the military and a lot of companies too. They don't do good exit interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but my exit interview was a bus ticket, literally. Thank you, boop, kick you bye. And then I get letters later like, Ploth, all these people are trying to act like you and be like you, and I'm like, what? And they weren't joking. Like they were like livid. My captain and all the other, they were complaining. They all talk about you and stuff. What the hell did you do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I did what you couldn't do.
Right. Right. What was it that Grant Cardone? I think Grant Cardone says it.
Grant Card.
He says, I don't know. They were asking him about, so 51% of the people like you and 49% of the people don't like you. And then he says, like, I think this is what he said, and I'm not quoting him, but I think the idea was, well, at least I know that 100% of the people are watching me, right? So everyone's watching me. So whether, half like me and the other half don't, but at least everyone's looking at me. So, right? So you're getting the attention whether you like it or not, right?
And you know what? I've come to accept it, and I learned at a very young age because I'm tall. That either, and I would get on my younger brother's cases because they do more of that slouch.
Mm-hmm.
You have to you stand out, and you've got to
Yeah.
put it out there or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not afraid to put it out there, and I don't make it soft for anybody. I don't make it easy. Like my spouse gets upset. No, I need a soft place. I'm like, that's called a pillow.
Right. Right.
And the day you start thinking everybody you need a pillow, we've got a problem because that's not reality. That's a book.
Right. Yeah.
That's Twilight. That's all the other
Yeah.
nonsense. And that is one of the biggest issues I have because that's why I bring up those books because people need to read more of that first before the fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fantasy's good, great, yay, yay, Sex in the City, yay, but don't subscribe to it
Mm-hmm.
because that's not reality.
Right. Right.
Reality is Face of Battle. Reality is Mask of Command. Reality is what goes on in the streets
Right.
that you don't see, that the rest of the world doesn't let you see.
Right.
But I know it because I grew up in it, and I've seen it in both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen what El Paso was like, even Juarez.
Right.
We used to leave and go there.
Yeah.
Even back then, it wasn't a great city.
That's scary. Yeah.
And if you just went just an inch this way or an inch that way,
Who knows? Yeah.
So I always remind people that's what the beauty about the military is, and my son is getting that education too. He just got back from Manila, and he was like, and I said, now you're getting a dose of reality.
Yeah.
Because You can complain all you want about everything here.
Right.
When you start going outside of that and thinking you can go change and do all these things and realize the rest of the world is not subscribing to that point of view, you're going to wake up and realizing that it's a beaten path, and it's not being negative,
Right.
but that's a reality. And I think the same thing in the entertainment business. That's why it's an upheaval even now.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this, and a lot of my actor friends and people that are in the cast of The Giant get upset. And I say, listen, you did it to yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Stop blaming everybody else. AI is here. Learn to deal with it and work with it. If you don't like it, oh well, then make a difference. Try to change it.
Right.
And by changing it is stop asking for gross, overinflated salaries.
Right.
And I said, I remind you, my son's not getting paid.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you want $20,000 a day for what? To play dress up?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry for that,
Yeah. No. No. No.
but it's just like in the military too. It's like, wait a second. So you've got a guy at the top with the bars, and you got guy at the bottom as a, we'll say KFC for fun.
Right.
Um, so whose perspective is right?
Right.
You know, who's doing more than the other? If you're going to sit back and sit at a desk and be like Orson Welles and gaining weight and telling people to do this, that, and the other thing, and not pitching in, what do you expect from the guy that's the lower rank?
Right. Right.
You know, it's by example. They're gonna, it's.
Lead by example. Yeah.
So I really think the military did instill a lot of it, and it goes back to what I even said too. It still has a long way to go
Right.
to be as great as it can be for people and an opportunity. They've done away with programs that I wish they didn't. Like when my father was in, and his brother and my uncles, they had the correspondence program. That doesn't exist anymore. They don't have other things where you could learn other opportunities and trades while you're not working your other job.
Mm-hmm.
I think those things need to come back, and I also think we need to have a better effectiveness and readiness at the point when we were in the 70s and 80s.
Right. Well,
Our readiness now is like 4 or 5 weeks before, like TAC, MAC, and SAC. I think we had almost a 24-hour readiness.
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we need to get back to that. But the other stuff,
Yeah. So, Kevin, so as we wind down here, and I always ask this to everyone, if you had 2 minutes to spend in an auditorium with transitioning officers and servicemen in general and women, uh, what would you say in 2 minutes? I mean, what would be if Kevin Ploth had 2 minutes and could put all of his knowledge into giving some advice? What do you think that would be?
help each other, but truly help each other. Don't go in it for your own gains,
Mm-hmm.
for your own glory. Be the way you were in the military as you are in civilian life. Always be of service, to serve, have served, to be served, and also conduct yourself as we did when in doubt. Always salute,
Mm-hmm.
and don't get caught up in your own head. And it is better. It can be better,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be greater if we find the greater of our good to great.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that is again going back to supporting each other and believing you can do anything. You did the hardest thing.
Right.
You did the hardest thing that almost 87 to 89% to 90% of the human race does not do.
Right.
That's even the same thing for becoming a police officer. But and hopefully I say to all of them as a cautionary tale that you went in it for the right reasons.
Right.
There are some that wear a uniform that should not.
Right.
There are some that are in decision making slots that should not.
Right.
But that's very small in the scope of all,
Right.
that you become that better angel of the nature of us and yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and be served
Mm-hmm.
and still serve. And don't don't get caught up with all the semantics and the jargons and agendas. That's about it. I mean, and I would, again, it's your world. Go create and be creative,
Yeah, we are.
and that means anything. It doesn't mean art.
Right,
Building a business, that's creating something. You're doing something that most people just do
right,
this. Someone goes, well, you just banged out all those books. I said, because you know what? I did it because I got tired of seeing it. I did it.
right,
And it's not saying I'm some great, Dr. Seuss or anything else. I did it.
right,
And no one's going to take that away from me. The same thing with my service. Well, you didn't serve that long or whatever. I said, fuck you. You weren't there.
right,
I did it.
right,
I even did it when people thought I wasn't even going to make it in day one.
right,
I did it when people didn't even think I would make it after day 8. And I didn't listen to them. I listened to my heart
mm-hmm.
and my way. It's the same thing now. I'm going to do it my way. I will tell you right now, I've battled some big production companies. I battled some big um, agencies and all that stuff. And I basically told them to go pound sand. I said, how dare you come to my table that I invited to?
Right, right,
And then you tell me how to do my job?
mm-hmm.
Don't don't let people push you around. And I said, I told this to my other veterans. I said, you did the toughest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Be a badass. Embrace it.
Right, right,
Well, I work behind a desk. I said, so what? So what?
right,
20,000 other people worked behind a desk before you in the army.
right,
So what?
right. It,
That's if you want to have that mindset, that's all you'll ever be.
right,
Transcend, transform,
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
what do I know?
Right, right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, man. So listen, we're gonna have to have you back and dig a little bit deeper, into some of the masks, right? So we need to talk.
Oh yeah, that's a great. Have you ever read the book?
No, but now I'm enticed.
Get both of them. Get Face of Battle
Right,
and even even oh, even this one.
Battle for History. Yeah, send me a few of those. I like to read. As you can tell behind me, this is just a corner of my library, but I've got some over there and in my garage. I got.
Oh wait, you want to see why? Wait, I'll show you. And
Yeah,
you can just let your listeners.
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
That's all my Custer books right here.
Wow.
Battle of Little Bighorn. We did a podcast
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
and then the Zulu War,
Yeah.
Islandwana, and Rorke's Drift, and then when I was telling you,
Yeah. Yeah. Read.
this is all history, and then literature, and then Shakespeare.
Right.
Uh, which I was very fortunate to get trained by the people from the RSC, and two of my mentors, Suzanne Sobey and Paul Wagar, really instilled, and plus they both said that God gave me a gift first, having a good voice, and then the rest was easy. I was like, I don't know if it was
Yeah. Yeah.
easy
Yeah.
because I'm dyslexic and I work really hard to read and really hard to work on
Right.
memorizing my stuff. So I mean, anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. That's right. Well, thank you, Kevin. So as we chime off here, um, that wraps up our episode for today, Kevin. I will have you back. Um,
Oh, I would love to. I would love to be a recurring. I'll bring some friends.
yeah. A huge thank you to Kevin Ploth for sharing his journey. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Join the conversation by sharing your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Until next time, keep pushing forward, stay strong, and remember, you're never alone.